Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage APTA Chair David Stackrow.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying a great luncheon. I'm sorry to interrupt while you're finishing, but we need to keep the train on the tracks and make sure we arrive at a timely stop for the next sessions. So thank you for joining us for APTA's 2019 Awards for Excellence in Safety and Security in Rail. This will be followed by our keynote speaker. Today's luncheon and speaker are sponsored by HNTB Corporation. Representing HNTB is Kimberly Slaughter, Senior Vice President and leader for the company's national rail market. Kimberly's career in transportation spans both the public and private sectors and includes leadership positions at HNTB, at HDR Inc., and at the Metropolitan Transit Authority of Harris County in Houston, Texas, which is also where Kimberly is originally from. Please welcome a champion of public transportation, Kim Slaughter.
Thank you. On behalf of my colleagues at HNTB, I want to say how excited we are to be with you this week. I've had a lot of fun. I don't know about all the rest of you. I've been here since Friday night and had a little time to enjoy the city, but mostly been in great committee meetings and sessions, and it's always very rewarding. We're also very honored to partner with APTA for all the great vision that this organization brings both nationally and internationally in thought leadership and being a trailblazer for best practices as well as best outcomes. APTA shapes the future of mobility in our local communities, lifting economic vitality and quality of life for everyone. The valued partnerships and outcomes from our time together lift the power of transit and rail that are creating a more connected future for all of us. So we are so proud to be here today addressing transportation systems, the needs of those systems that improve public safety and the quality of life, to planning and designing projects that minimize environmental impacts as all of us strive to lift and improve the communities in which we live. Today's luncheon is about safety. And safety is a hallmark of our industry, and we're honored to have the opportunity to sponsor this luncheon to celebrate those professionals in our industry that deliver that safety to our community every day. Again, we highly value our time together with you at APTA events. We look forward to learning from you and sharing some of our experiences with you too. Now we'd like for you to enjoy a video from HNTB that lets you have a little insight on the culture of our company. Thank you again.
When trains helped lead the westward expansion, we were there. Then as motor vehicles became the dominant mode of transportation and our interstate highway system expanded nationwide, we were there. And right now, as cities prepare for the future of mobility, we are here. HNTB is helping communities connect people and places, and so much more. We are here to leave a permanent impact where we live and work. By rethinking the future of transportation, we're bringing people together and expanding opportunity, working with you to create the infrastructure solutions that turn your challenges into successful community icons. You don't have to look far to see our impact. All across the country, you'll find places where our innovative spark is generating ideas to strengthen communities. So when it comes to achieving your goals and leaving a legacy, no challenge is too big. And as we head into the future prepared to hand off the world to our children, we're reimagining everything from the ground up and harnessing the power of collaboration. We are here to create the community that's important to you, to all of us. We have been a part of your community in the past. We are here now, and we will continue to be here with you as we work together to build our community, our home.
Well, thank you, Kim, and thank you to HNTB for sponsoring this session and for all that you do to support APTA. Thank you. Every year, we honor the people and organizations that demonstrate the best practices in security and safety. But before we get to those awards, I'd like to first recognize our rodeo winners. The Rail Transit Team Achievement Award is given to the system with the highest rail operator and maintainer combined score for those events. I'd like to read off the top 3 finishers in that area. The third place winner was won by the Denver Regional Transportation District team from Denver, Colorado. The overall second place finisher was the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation System from LA, California. And first place went to the Bay Area Rapid Transit Team, who won the Rail Transit Team Achievement Award overall. Ensuring the well-being of our riders and employees, our communities and neighbors, is more than an operating principle or a strategic goal. It's a core value. It's who we are, and it's the most important thing we do every day. It's a privilege to recognize the achievement of today's award recipients. As you'll hear, these efforts advanced solutions and help sustain strong safety cultures. I'd like to begin by thanking the members of this year's selection committee. Please hold your applause until I've announced all 5 members. Lou Brown of Jacobs Engineering, Katrina Faulkner of the Orange County Transportation Authority, Christopher Trusillo of New Jersey Transit, Hillary Konzel of Metra in Chicago, and Walter Heinrich of K&J Safety. Let's begin with our 3 Certificate of Merit winners. The first award is for safety in the category of light rail and streetcars, and the Certificate of Merit goes to TransDev Regional Transit Authority in New Orleans. To address an increase in rail accidents, TransDev RTA took a highly proactive approach. The agency created a plan to resolve the most pressing issues contributing to recent rail accidents, and this increased safety for the riders and the employees. Thank you, TransDev RTA, and congratulations. The next award is for security in the category of light rail and streetcars, and this Certificate of Merit goes to NFTA Metro Rail, the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority in Buffalo, New York. NFTA Metro Rail created a partnership between the Buffalo Fire Department and the agency's own transit authority, police, to update its safety and security practices. Since preparation for first responders was the top priority, NFTA Metro Rail implemented a new training program throughout the entire region. Thank you and congratulations to the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority. I'm happy to see one of my neighboring systems receive this special recognition. Our third and final Certificate of Merit is for safety in the category of commuter and intercity rail, and it is awarded to Virgin Trains USA in Miami, Florida, formerly known as Brightline. Virgin Trains USA created an out-of-the-box approach to safety. The transit agency partnered with a nonprofit mobile barbershop called BuzzBox. Together, they hosted educational events and gave haircuts along the railroad corridor. This partnership greatly increased safety awareness in the local community. Congratulations to Virgin Trains USA. And could our Certificate of Merit winners please stand for another round of applause? Now it's time to announce this year's Gold Award winners. We have a total of 6 Gold Awards for 2019. The first 2 awards are in the category of light rail and streetcar. There is one for safety and one for security. The Gold Award for Safety goes to Metropolitan Transit Authority of Harris County, Houston Metro.
The Metropolitan Transit Authority of Harris County, Texas provides more than 116 million passenger rides annually. Featuring a fleet of more than 1,200 buses and a light rail system spanning 22 miles, Metro provides fast and efficient transit services for our nation's 4th largest city. Our job is to ensure that the transit system offers the highest quality and safety for our riders. And as Metro Rail Systems Integration Test Director Ken Lubeck explains, Metro's synchronized signal system is a huge reason why.
Houston's downtown street grid was a difficult place for light rail priority. Intersections working independently led to trains being stopped multiple times between stations. Moreover, cars, bikes, and pedestrians would often be held for trains that were still 2 blocks away and not moving. We came up with a traffic timing system that serves a train request exactly on time, never earlier than requested, never later, regardless of which phase each traffic signal was in when the train called. Then we used railway logic to coordinate adjacent intersections. This keeps the train moving, increases time for other traffic, and provides capacity for safety improvements such as exclusive train phases. This project was a partnership between Metro and the City of Houston. Its success gained us credibility as we approach stakeholders on future safety improvements.
Providing multimodal transit services in a car-centric region of more than 7 million people is a monumental task. According to Ken Lubeck, safety will always be the authority's #1 priority today, tomorrow, and beyond.
On behalf of Metro and the City of Houston, we are pleased to accept this award.
So Houston Metro, in collaboration with the City of Houston's Traffic Timing Group, launched the project that was called SmartLink. The goal was to improve light rail signaling at intersections within the Central Business District. Congratulations again. The second Gold Award is in the category for security, and it goes to Dallas Area Rapid Transit. With the support of the agency's president and executive director and its board of directors, DART's chief of police commissioned a 5-year strategic staffing plan. DART partnered with the Department of Criminal Justice at the University of Texas to conduct research and to develop the plan. And here's the story behind that collaboration and how it helped make the Dallas system more secure. The next two gold awards are in the category of heavy rail, one for safety and one for security. The gold award for safety goes to Miami-Dade Transit in Miami, Florida. Miami-Dade Transit sought to reduce employee injuries. The agency created a new safety program which used the Department of Transportation and Public Works SMS framework for monitoring employee injuries. Here is how the framework contributed to a decrease in employee injuries.
As Director of the Miami-Dade Department of Transportation and Public Works, I am both honored and proud that the American Public Transportation Association has recognized our safety and security team. Our county is home to the largest transit system in Florida. Last year, our Metro Rail carried over 19 million passengers. Over the course of the 3 years, our rail services team has reduced employee workplace injuries from 49 in 2016 to 15 in 2018. That's a 227% reduction in workplace injuries. We have also implemented and executed several preventative safety measures, such as continuing education and training courses, protective equipment policies, thorough rail shop inspections, daily toolbox talks, and building mentorship between employees. We want to thank APTA for presenting our department with the 2019 Rail Safety and Security Gold Award. And I want to let everybody know that our management is committed to work diligently towards eliminating all on-site injuries.
The next gold award is for security in the category of heavy rail, and it goes to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, WMATA, in the nation's capital. The Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority has the only tri-jurisdictional police department in the United States, with responsibility for the District of Columbia, the state of Maryland, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. WMATA adopted the 6 pillars of President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. Let's hear how this initiative has made WMATA a more secure public transit system.
You're looking at the Security Operation Control Center here at Metro Transit Police. These cameras provide us extra eyes and ears out there. It gives us the ability to look at crowd control. It gives us the ability to confirm an incident is happening. It gives the ability to share intelligence real time with responding units where you're updating the lookout or saying, no, the suspect got on the train or the victim's on the platform. So it gives us the ability to share that intelligence real time with our responding officers. System-wide, you're talking thousands of cameras. And the ability to zoom in on a license plate or a logo on a sweater or a jacket or a pair of shoes.
Black jeans, black and blue shoes.
And that kind of information, again, collectively helps us identify a suspect or a person of interest. We may not catch you real time, but within a day or two, we would identify you as a person of interest, work with our partners in the media, and we'll identify you and subsequently arrest you. If you're in a public space, and if one camera is not picking you up in a very short amount of time, another camera is. So you got to remember, throughout the rail stations and on buses, the cameras overlap each other. The cameras are pulled up real time, so if a call goes out for a disorderly individual or a robbery that just occurred, this unit will pull up that camera, look at all the different angles, quickly assess, okay, no, he's on the train or he fled out the station, and give that information to responding units. So it gives us the ability to, really address the problem real time. We're nested with our police communications division, so that intelligence sharing is even improving as we speak. The feasibility of having it also in every platform, on every rail car, we know that's not practical. That's very hard to get away with anything in our system.
Our last 2 gold awards are in the category of commuter and intercity rail. One is for safety and one is for security. The gold award for safety goes to the MTA Long Island Railroad in Jamaica, New York. The Long Island Railroad is one of the busiest commuter railroads in North America. So it partnered with the MTA Police Department to create a right-of-way task force. Let's see how the task force has increased safety.
Thanks, APTA, for awarding us the 2019 Rail Safety and Security Gold Award.
I really want to thank APTA for recognizing Long Island Railroad and the Right-of-Way Task Force for the Gold Award. It's important that the members of the task force know how their work is appreciated and recognized by the professionals in our industry.
So Right-of-Way Task Force was created as a partnership between MTA Police Department and Long Island Railroad Corporate Safety to combat the heavy volume of trespassers, encroachments, debris strikes that was happening along the Long Island Railroad property.
In our most critical areas, they've recognized the need for high security fencing, and they'll submit those needs to engineering department and have those fences installed.
So Right-of-Way Task Force, when we respond to a scene, one of the things we do is we collect data, and that data goes into an algorithm where we assign point value system for every mile of the Long Island Railroad property.
The amount of lives they saved, the time they saved, the inconvenience to commuters they saved is immeasurable.
I'd like to thank APTA for recognizing the men and women of Long Island Railroad and MTA-PD for the 2019 APTA Safety and Security Awards. It is a tremendous honor to be associated with the men and women here. The efforts of MTA-PD and Long Island Railroad are unprecedented in terms of ensuring safety of our customers, our employees, and the communities.
Our final Gold Award is for security in the category of commuter and intercity rail. This Gold Award goes to Sound Transit in Seattle, Washington. Sound Transit took an emergency preparedness approach. The agency adopted the nationally acclaimed Stop the Bleed campaign by providing outreach, education, awareness, and life-saving resources. Sound Transit provided employees and customers with the tools to deal with a catastrophic event. Let's listen to how Sound Transit has implemented this important emergency preparedness program.
It's a special time for Sound Transit. We're undergoing a huge capital expansion program that goes out through 2041.
We're expanding both our ridership, our employees, our staff, as well as our consultants that are on site. As we grow, we need to grow safely.
Sound Transit is the regional transit authority in the greater Seattle area, currently providing commuter rail, light rail, and express bus service to our community.
In recent history, with the mass casualty events that have occurred in this country, we have noticed a couple things. Number one, blood loss is the number one leading cause of preventable death. And number two, it's a new world. Bystanders will take action.
We sought to find ways to provide resources to those individuals and bystanders that were going to take action through the Stop the Bleed campaign.
We implemented the Stop the Bleed programs through wall mount kits on the different floors of our facilities, our administrative building, and then our maintenance buildings. We expanded to the different systems. We put it onto the light rail vehicles, the commuter rail, put out over 250, almost 300 kits that are out on the system. So the kit comes specifically with basic first aid kit and supplies, and tourniquets that allow us to render first aid for arterial bleeding.
We partnered with the University of Washington Medical Center as well as Harborview Medical Center to come and help assist with training and provide insight and coordination for some of our personnel here. They were engaged in the training. They really enjoyed the hands-on part of it where they could practice the process. And we've already received requests for us to do the training again.
Stop the Bleed saves lives. It gets the tools out and it gets the resources out to the people when they need it. Sound Transit believes in that. We believe that the safety is the number one priority of our customers and our employees. This is a tool that allows us to accomplish that goal.
All of our Certificate of Merit winners and our Gold Awards winners have pioneered ways to make public transportation safer and more secure. And for that, our industry is indebted to all of you. Let's give all of this year's winners one more big round of applause for all of their accomplishments. Earlier this year, APTA launched a Get On Board campaign, and we'd like to show you some of the results in a video, short video, from what some of our systems did to promote Get On Board as our national awareness for using transit.
Get on board for public transit!
On April 25th, 2019, the public transportation industry came together for APTA's inaugural Get On Board Day. Organized by the Marketing and Communications Committee, Get On Board was a national awareness and advocacy day highlighting the importance of public transportation to communities nationwide. The day proved to be a resounding success, with more than 250 public transit agencies and organizations hosting activities, events, and special promotions. To assist members, APTA developed an online toolkit full of resources such as artwork, infographics, fact sheets, and social media posts. Additionally, APTA encouraged community members and leaders to express their support and get on board for public transit by signing a petition for a government commitment to increase investment and expansion of public transportation.
As transit agencies across Illinois are uniting, they're calling for more funding. This is called Get On Board Day.
What CBTA is saying is anyone who gets on the bus today can take a picture and post it to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, any social media account, and just hashtag GetOnBoardCBTX.
National Get On Board Day. You can get free rides on all JTA public modes of transportation.
And today you might want to consider hopping on a bus too, because it's National Get On Board Day, and it's an initiative to bring awareness about the importance of public transportation.
Hi, I'm Mayor Greg Fisher. Join me in Tark on April 25th, National Get On Board with Public Transportation Day.
The day garnered exceptional local media coverage and filled social media channels. Our tracking shows that there were over 6,100 mentions of the Get On Board hashtag on social media and more than 81 million print and broadcast impressions. Together, the industry made sure that our message of getting on board for public transit was heard loud and clear.
Get on board!
Get on board!
Get on board!
Get on board! Get on board for public transit!
Thank you to everyone who participated in Get On Board Day. I think our inaugural event for Get On Board Day was a huge success this year, and we look to follow that up. And now to introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon, please welcome our President and CEO, Paul Skatelis.
Thank you, Dave, very much. How'd you like that smooth, seamless switch up here, right? I don't think Saturday Night Live does it any better. I think we're okay. Anyway, I want to add my congratulations to our Safety and Security Award winners. They do amazing work, oftentimes in very difficult circumstances, and I don't think any one of us want or take underappreciation of the fact of their stupendous work to keep us safe, to keep our employees safe, to keep our customers safe, to keep our property and facilities safe, to keep our equipment safe. Basically, we couldn't do the job of delivering service to our customers every single day without their help. And the same goes for our security personnel who do just amazing, amazing work at all times. So thank you for the work that you do. We're very pleased, obviously, to have recognized all of these individuals and agencies here this afternoon. You know, yesterday during the opening session, I mentioned very briefly the APTA study mission that we had last year here in Canada. It occurred last summer. Our delegation visited Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver. And specifically, it was a mission to learn about Canada's approach to infrastructure development and project delivery. The meetings with public transport officials in every city were extremely valuable and thought-provoking. And we have completed, as APTA, a final report about that mission, cataloging the observations and the findings from that study effort. And thanks to our partnership with CUDA, the Canadian Urban Transit Association, our counterpart organization here in Canada, APTA members returned home with lots of useful examples and information that can be applied back in the States about delivering new infrastructure projects. Like APTA, CUDA is the voice of public transportation in Canada, representing transit systems, suppliers, government agencies, individuals, and transportation-related groups. This afternoon, we have with us the President and CEO of CUDA, who joined us actually last summer, midstream in our mission, and he joined us here in Toronto and really helped us make it a truly successful effort. Marco D'Angelo became the head of CUDA shortly before our visit here last July, but his work with the association dates back to 2003, when he was CUDA's Director of Public Affairs and Communications. After earning his MBA from the University of Montreal, he went on to serve for 10 years as the Executive Director of the Ontario Traffic Council, which represents every aspect of traffic management in the province. Marco returned to CUDA to serve as President and CEO last year, just in time to help us with our mission. We've invited him to lead a discussion with us this afternoon with a few outstanding panelists on infrastructure investment and innovations in funding and financing. You're going to find it extraordinarily interesting. Please help me in joining and welcoming Marco D'Angelo.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today on behalf of the Canadian Urban Transit Association. In July last year, APTA organized a one-week study mission to Canada, as Paul was saying, and we were pleased to help with that. During that visit, participants learned about our federal government commitment to investing in transformative transit projects, how we build, finance, and maintain those projects. And this is something I think that a lot of the APTA members were able to benefit from as the final document was produced cataloging the lessons learned during that study mission. So I'm just going to take a moment here to explain just a few things about Canadian federal financing, and then I'll introduce each of our panelists, and they'll introduce their systems, and then we'll have a brief Q&A. So Canada knows what it means to build the future. The Investing in Canada plan is a 12-year, $180 billion plan, which is focusing federal money into 5 main infrastructure categories, one of which is public transit. The plan's main objectives include long-term economic growth, supporting a low-carbon and green economy, social inclusion, and having more accessible communities. So, 3 industry leaders are going to join me on today's panel. They'll provide their insight on the development of Canada's rail transit system for the 21st century. They'll be covering topics such as how major capital investments are unfolding and what Canadian operators are doing to improve system reliability and resiliency in a fast-changing ridership growth environment. So I'd like to introduce the first of our 3 panelists. As the CEO of the TTC, Rick Leary oversees North America's 3rd largest transit system. The TTC delivers subway, streetcar, bus, and paratransit services in Canada's largest city. Rick is responsible for 15,000 employees and a 10-year capital budget of $6 billion Canadian. The TTC is also the host of the 2019 APTA Rail Conference. So Rick, please, if you'd join me on stage. So there we go. Pick the first seats. Yeah, come on in. Do it late night style. Welcome, Rick. Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Okay.
Welcome, everybody.
All right, so Rick, each presenter is going to walk us through a few slides to orient us about some of the capital projects that are underway in your system, and then we'll come back with questions once everyone's given a synopsis of what's new at their system. So the floor is yours, Rick.
Thank you. I'll stand up the presentation.
Or you can just stay here, and you'll have the same screen.
Oh, okay. Fabulous. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, welcome, everybody. I hope you're enjoying yourselves in a fabulous city. We're really pleased to be hosting this event today, so thank you for coming. Do I do the flipping here? Just going to start off and just talk about, even though Marco touched on it a little bit, just talk about the fabulous system that we have here at the TTC. You know, it is the 3rd largest transit system in North America. only behind Mexico City and New York City, and we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of how much we mean to this city. If you heard the chair yesterday talk about the TTC, all right, she always comments about, as the TTC goes, so does this city. 85% of all the ridership in the entire GTHA is taken by the TTC. Okay, so it's a huge population of ridership overall. And we're also well integrated in dozens and dozens, about 75 different locations with our regional partners as well as our neighboring transit systems. Just to show you the large, complex system that we have and how integrated it is. And the real point here is we have a system that provides pretty much all of the city of Toronto service within about 2 kilometers. All right, and just as a little stat, 70% of the people that take the subway transfer from a bus or a streetcar to get there. So it's a very integrated system. Just a little more on stats. You know, we carry 1.7 million customer trips a day. It's incredible. You know, it's over 500 million annually. And there's 15,000 employees at this organization that carry that out, that feat daily. And I'm very proud to be with this organization the 5 years I am, the year and a half that I've been in this position. And what this does show you is we have a very high field box recovery rate, which is close to 70%. But I don't like to brag about that because the focus here should really be on the small subsidy that we receive overall, recognize how important we are to the city. We, as other major transit systems, have some significant risks that we have to address. 30,000 to 40,000 people a year are moving to this city. The growth is incredible. There's 150 cranes in the GTHA. As you can see, there's 100,000 people overall moving throughout the whole GTHA, and that's the Greater Toronto Hamilton area. So there's a lot going on here, and our infrastructure is starting to show its age. It's real nice to see the beautiful new streetcars that we have, and that's a wonderful investment in the trains on Line 1 with the open gangways, fabulous investment. But there's still a lot more to do as we grow, and I'll show you some of that. You know, one of the questions that's posed to me quite often is, what keeps me up at night, right? And it's the amount of ridership that we have on this Line 1 system, right? 28,000 to 30,000 people in that peak hour going through. We put 26 to 28 trains per hour through one station. 1 year ago, that number was 22 to 23. So we've really worked hard, although we're putting automatic train control systems in, right, which is supposed to help us improve the reliability and the throughput. But we're doing things differently today than we did just a year ago, right? Challenging staff, right? We can't live with the status quo. The ATC is still out a few years. You know, we have to move more trains, more people quickly. But the thing that really I always take pause about is there's no room for error, because we very often have to slow down trains on our east and west corridor, right? If we have any type of delay on a 2.5-minute headway coming north and south, right? We have some very old station layouts, so there's a lot to be done here, and especially if our intent is to by 2026 and 2031, get up to 32 and 34 trains an hour in this area. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us. Now, this is where the capital element of the discussion today will come into place. When I took over 18 months ago, many of the councilors, my board members, people in the city were like, you're not capitalizing on buying the extra 60 streetcars that's available for you on the contract. There's an option. You have until October. You have to exercise that option. I said, I'll get back to you. They're like, why aren't you trying to buy more buses? I thought you were going to buy the 9th and 10th bus garage at the same time. I said, I'll get back to you. Right? There's so much the questions were asked. The Line 2 trains, all right, it was opened in the mid-'60s. The trains are approaching 30 years old. The capacity constraints on Line 2 are there. People wait on the platform every day, a train or two, to get on a train to get downtown. There's the expectation of ATC was going to be installed very shortly. And I kept having to say to them, I'll get back to you. About a year ago, we got all the staff together, and we said, we have to stop for a minute. What are the commitments the organization is making publicly, all right, that privately we're not funded for? And so what I asked staff to do, and a lot of discussion about asset management and, you know, how we're going to determine what's going on, and I said, there's some basic fundamentals in the business that we know, that let's just put it down on paper, right? Buses don't last 20, 22 years, all right? We know that trains need to be overhauled. We know that power sections have to be upgraded. So we put it all into one document. And in January of this year, as part of the 2019 operating budget, we submitted a capital investment plan document that laid out for the city and the province and the federal government that asset lifecycle replacement costs with minor growth, no expansion whatsoever, amounted to $33.5 billion. There was no money for trains and ATC and new buses and streetcars. Right? It was a hard pill to swallow, but the message had to get out. And in my position, or in our positions, all right, the truth and honest up front early is necessary because we have to message our needs. It's the elected officials' obligation, if they continue to want to talk about public transit and the commitment to public transit, that they'll have to help us achieve what they're asking us to do. And so ultimately, we have about a $24 billion shortfall over the next 15 years for the needs of the TTC. And I want to put that in perspective for you as well. Everybody loves the concept of expansion. And the province has announced just a few months ago a $28.5 billion expansion program here in the city of Toronto. We have added to that recognized need that if they want to continue to grow and have a transit system that makes Toronto and the greater Toronto area proud, that there is additional investment. So the real pressure now on the province and the federal government and the city is close to a $60 billion pressure. And at first I said it was a hard pill to swallow, but they were very grateful that at some point someone just laid it all on the table for them so we can do long-term finance planning. Now they know where they have to take it. So with that, Marco, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Rick. I think it's an important conversation that you started with your system this year, looking over a 15-year horizon that we talked about. And when we get to the Q&A, I know we'll talk a little bit more about the want to expand, the need to expand, but also recognizing the importance of state of good repair. So thank you for that. So I have the honor now of introducing our second panelist today. He's my chair, Doug Morgan. He's the director of Calgary Transit and heads CUTA's board of directors. Doug has led Calgary Transit since 2012 and has held numerous positions within the city of Calgary. He's spearheaded many important projects, including Calgary's Green Line LRT and the development of an intelligent transportation plan for the city. I welcome to the stage Doug Morgan. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to see Canada's best friends here in Toronto. So welcome. It's good to have you here. Maybe talk a bit about Calgary Transit. Maybe take Toronto and shrink it down by a tenth. It's a small prairie town that I would say is punching above its weight when it comes to transit and the value in the community. So maybe a few key stats. Calgary's a big city, big in space, 825 square kilometers, with a smaller population of 1.23 million. We do have a very extensive transit system, 60 kilometers of LRT, as well as a really extensive bus network. We recently invested in 70 kilometers of BRT. We run about just over 220 light rail vehicles, quite busy, mixed mode operation downtown, as well as grade separated in the community. So a fairly extensive network over a wide area and trying to serve a population that our competitor car is very well funded, and we have a penchant for rings of ring roads for us to compete with. So quite a challenging area to operate in. But we have been successful. And maybe I'll tell a little bit of a story. I'll be bookended with two folks that are really trying to struggle with growth. We're kind of facing the opposite. Calgary is the oil capital of Canada, and it's been a tough few years. So we've seen some contraction in the downtown. So we've seen our ridership come off a high of nearly 110 million passengers a year down to we're slowly seeing it recover. We're at 105. So we have a few different challenges as we look at expanding our network when ridership drops. But our customers are still happy. We do a lot of work trying to pull our customers, understand what's important to them, and we do this on a monthly basis. We ask them how they're doing, different elements of our service, and generally they're pretty satisfied at 87%. We're also a fairly competitive mode into a very dense downtown. We do capture almost half of the trips into the downtown come on transit. So we have had that success, and we're just currently dealing with some of these economic issues. Talk a bit about building the system. So with new funding streams coming on, we see there being a lot more capital available for big system expansions. And that really isn't how we built our current system of 60 kilometers. I counted up, there's about 11 different extensions over the last 20 years, small micro extensions where we have teams of internal staff that can deliver those projects almost like an assembly line. We extended all the lines out to the outlying communities over a 20-year period. But now we're seeing investments in the seed of the next line, the green line, which is what we call a mega project in Calgary's terms, of a $5 billion expansion, which is a whole different scope and a different strategy we're going to use to build the system. So we're kind of stepping back and saying, what strategies do we need today? What partners do we need? And trying to get this core piece of infrastructure built to set the stage for the next 30 years of incremental extensions. And even during difficult times, we still have our eye on our long-term plan. Much like the TTC looking forward, capital investments, we had a $13 billion 30-year plan called the Route Ahead that matched not only the network development, but also the customer experience and the different elements of how we support customers. So the network you see on this slide is the overall fully built out network, which is a combination of LRT and BRT together, and trying to put that system together as a network of improvements to serve Calgary. And finally, Rick talked a little bit about it. How do we make sure we're caring for our existing system? And we've pursued a few strategies, and maybe they're a bit subterfuge in order to get funding for key elements of state of grid repair. Things like extending our platforms for capacity to fork our platforms allowed us to revitalize our entire network as far as station infrastructure. Along with an extension to one of our lines, it gave us the ability to retrofit our control center to a state-of-the-art control center that is expandable to the new LRT. We took the opportunity of investing in a major CNG facility for our buses as part of the expansion, but also allows us to decommission older facilities. So really looking at how we leverage some of the growth to replenish and refurbish some of our existing system. We see we're in, I would call it adolescence for an LRT system, and starting to struggle with that tipping point between 20 and 30 years. State of good repair, even more important. Things like traction power, track work, station maintenance is becoming more onerous. And I think some of the strategies at TTC to outline that to the decision makers that we need to balance that new investment along with state of good repair. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Doug. Our third panelist is Kevin Desmond, the CEO of TransLink, the authority responsible for the regional transportation network of Metro Vancouver. Kevin's an experienced executive with a long and successful career in the transit industry. His organization is currently going from strength to strength, including the development of a long-term transportation plan to suit the needs of Metro Vancouver. Kevin, we look forward to hearing more about those initiatives and where TransLink is headed tomorrow. Kevin.
I'm going to try this table-less. So Rick had it, yeah, real good. You got your glasses going there. I'm going to put my spectacles on as well. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I think the way we set it up, it was from east to west. So we are now on the all the way on the west coast. So I too will just give you kind of an overview and survey of who we are and kind of the big things that we're thinking about these days. This is just our image of what we call the Lower Mainland, the Metro Vancouver region. We serve actually a huge service area of 1,800 square kilometers, a population of roughly 2.5 million people. What's kind of notable about our region, you see the green area there, that's actually called the Agricultural Land Reserve. It's actually land that is strictly regulated for just agriculture. So the actual urban boundaries and where urban development can happen, more or less depicted in the gray area, and you can see our rapid transit network superimposed on the map. This region is also the largest port in Canada. It is the Pacific Gateway. So TransLink is a multimodal integrated planning and delivery organization. We provide all of the public transportation in the region, but we also provide funding and some policy direction for arterial roads. We own some bridges. We also provide funding and, again, some planning and policy direction for pedestrian and bike infrastructure going forward. TransLink was created 20 years ago, brought the bus and the rail company together, in part to create that integrated planning entity. We work very, very closely with the regional's land use planning organization, and is frankly one of the reasons for the success of our public transit and transportation program in Vancouver. As the country's largest port, and given our roads responsibilities, we also have a very strong responsibility and partnership with all the goods movement entities in the regions, the Port of Vancouver, the shippers, the railroads, the trucking companies, and so forth. It's actually a very, very important part of our agenda. One of the sort of looming issues that our freight movement folks are very worried about is the declining amount of industrial land. So you see all that green space, the actual amount of industrial land is shrinking almost by the minute, given the pressures on land use going forward. The last several years in our region is dominated by pretty phenomenal ridership growth. In fact, 2016, 17, and 18, we've seen something like a 17% growth in ridership through May of this year. We're still up at about 4.5%. We're very proud of that. 1.3 million daily boardings, 437 million annual boardings last year. We do, in fact, very much punch well above our weight in terms of those numbers. But it is that integration of land use to transportation that's been an ethic of our region for 40 years that really is told the tale associated with that. Now, of course, what we are and what we're talking about here is capital programming and expansion. And some of you may know, folks from Canada may be aware, in 2015, there was a very, very ill-advised plebiscite, a referendum in the Vancouver region for a half-cent sales tax. Sales tax in and of itself was kind of political poison, and doing something like a referendum in our region was unheard of. They don't do referendum, unlike folks, many of you in the United States, particularly in the western part of the United States. It failed very, very badly. A year later, everything changed, and a lot of that had to do with the new public transportation infrastructure program that was put in place by the current government in Ottawa. In fact, I was fortunate that program was announced 3 days after I started work at TransLink, so I got a little pot of gold arrived at our doorstep. But it reinvigorated the need for consensus in our region to make these investments going forward. Given that we had a plan that we had taken to the public, we were actually able to begin leveraging the federal dollars fairly quickly, probably more quickly than any of the other provinces in Canada. So we're now well on our way to a $9 billion program, halfway through our, in terms of funding, our 10-year plan. We call it the Mayor's Vision. We've received about $2.5 billion from the Federal Public Transportation Infrastructure Fund, matched by about $2.7 billion for the province. We make up the rest from our various different sources. The capital money is paying for significant expansion to our SkyTrain system. We're going to be building 2 extensions simultaneously. We still need to find a couple $1 billion for the final extensions, at least in the context of this 10-year plan. While we're waiting for those big capital projects, we all know capital projects take a while, we've been trying to pour out as much additional service as possible, all of that funded by our local new tax and fee sources. So we started putting out services across the board in 2016. That's helped to fuel that ridership increase. So we kind of, everything came together at the right point in time. We were seeing latent demand beginning to pick up, and just when that happened, we were able to fuel the fire, if you will, with ridership growth. I do want to mention, in terms of state of good repair, some of the public transportation infrastructure program funding is paying for our state of good repair program, but a lot of it, about $200 million a year, we set aside for state of good repair. Now, even with this expansion program and with that ridership growth, we have a lot of capacity issues. There are a lot of challenges ahead. We still need to get the final funding for the rest of the 10-year plan. Hopefully we'll do that about next year. But our region is facing rapid population growth. We're expecting by the 2040s about a 50% increase in population in our region, in a region that is very constricted with its land use. So we're going to have to cram more people into that fairly crowded area. We are not going to be building more roads in our region. It's not on the table. It's not what the overall political establishment or region, really the general public want to see. They want to see more public transportation as big and as fast as we can put it forward. Another one of our challenges is 21% of our operating revenue is a TransLink gas tax. It's right now 17 cents a liter. On July 1st, it goes up to 18.5 cents a liter. So you can do your conversion back into gallons in the United States. It's a pretty hefty tax. The government of BC has a very, very aggressive, what they call the Clean BC program, to introduce electric vehicles fairly rapidly, and eventually by the 2040s, there would be no internal combustion engine cars sold. That's a good thing on the climate and sustainability side. On the other hand, it spells doom for our gas tax, and it's going to accelerate that. We've now estimated by the end of the next 10 years, our gas tax revenue will be down about $60 million a year, just because of the impact of electrification and higher fuel mileage. So we've got a challenge there. Of course, the big issue in the United States, same issue here. We receive our federal gas tax funding. We might want to talk about that, same as in the United States with the gas tax. Automation. What's automation as well going to do to our region? And that sort of brings up in the image that this picture is meant to depict. We're beginning to look at mobility pricing. We put together an independent commission in 2017 and 18 to recommend what a mobility pricing regime might look like and how we might go about implementing it. How much money could be raised in order to reduce congestion. The three main pillars of our mobility pricing, this would be a regional mobility pricing, by the way, could either be vehicle miles traveled or point tolling or anything in between, but it has to be founded on three pillars. It's got to raise new revenue. It's got to reduce congestion. There's no reason to do it, at least if we're going to sell it to the public, if they can't actually reduce congestion, and it has to be viewed as fair and equitable. So that's something that we're going to begin to take up. We will take it up, my final slide, in our long-range plan. The last time our region did a very fulsome long-range plan exercise was 1993. By the end of our 10-year plan that's underway now, virtually everything in that plan will have been implemented. So hats off to our region to actually get done and make that vision real. But our region is eager and yearning for more and more investment. And we're going out with our largest ever public engagement project throughout this summer. I hope and expect to hear from tens and tens of thousands of people through online and face-to-face types of engagement. We're asking the questions: what do you value in your view of your quality of life? What do you dream of for your mobility in the future? Clearly, this is a very exciting time to be in this industry. A lot of disruptions happening, but at the end of the day, we still need to make the investments to move people effectively.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. So thank you. So we've heard from three of CUTA's Canada's leading operating systems in rail. So we have some time for some Q&A. I have a few questions. If we have time remaining, there are microphones on the floor. But I'll begin with a theme that's close for all of us, which is enhancing the customer experience. So what are some recent success stories from the TTC, from Calgary Transit and TransLink, regarding rail operational improvements that have benefited your riders?
Sure, I got two that come to mind right away. You know, many of you have seen our streetcar network, and many of you have commented to me about the fact that it's in mixed traffic. It's a big issue in the city. It's the love for the streetcar is in the fabric of the city, but the delays are daunting. So about 2 years ago, we worked with the city itself to come up with a King Street Priority Project, where we took 2.2 kilometers of roadway and restricted vehicle access. And you know, we worked on public realm improvements with them, but it was well taken by the city initially. The public was a little concerned because the shops in the area were seeing a little bit of loss and some concerns there. But overall, it was endorsed by council after 1.5 years of a pilot because it did what it committed it would do. It generated increased ridership from about 74,000 to 84,000 passenger trips a day. It reduced the travel times in that area, and it improved the reliability of the service on the line. So we got a lot of very positive comments from the public, improving their experience going through. And the other one I'd like to just talk about quickly, if I could, is I talked about what keeps me up at night and the number of trains and the throughput on that line 1. And the fact that just a year ago, we were only at 22 to 23 trains per hour. In challenging staff to do things differently, they came up with a multifaceted program where we put extra trains inside yards. All right, we call them runners directed trains, and anytime there was a 30 to a 1 minute delay, they just started slipping the trains in, keeping the trains coming south, making sure that there was the movement. But at the same time, we put 7 or 8 staff on the platform every day that do nothing but control passenger flow so that people get on the train, doors close quickly, and expedite the movement for the train. So we're doing all the little things that we possibly can in anticipation of the future, knowing that ATC is right around the corner and knowing that the need for additional trains to accommodate ATC is also there. But the public is noticing those small differences, and they're very appreciative of them.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Maybe I'll just talk about a little bit of detail we've done, and it's really establishing the value connection for customers. So we implemented a program that we call our customer experience program, where we're polling our customers on a daily basis with feedback to the management team on the elements of a customer commitment that we created, which is 6 elements of great service, and measuring what our customers think about that. Then we spent as much time on that customer commitment with our staff to make sure there was alignment right from customer to staff of what's important and what to work on. And every month we drive that change in the organization, where to focus based on the feedback of the customers and how it aligns with the commitment we've made to them. We've also taken some of the things around our rail operation and applied it to BRT. So when you come to Calgary, the stations look like an LRT station. The traveler information looks the same. At the heated shelter, the experience is much like an LRT without the cost. We've also changed our operating parameters inside the organization to treat it like an LRT system. So there's work permits for the bus-only lanes, and we give it that higher level of commitments. We test the on-time performance of the BRT system similar to the LRT to give us a stepping stone from regular bus service up to the LRT. So again, just trying to ground everything we do in that value proposition of what's important to customers and have it drive our strategy.
Well, first, I'm sort of with Rick, and I appreciate you mentioned, the reliability of the service. At the end of the day, we have to make sure as transit operators that we're providing very reliable service and convenient service. So we're working on the convenience with our expansion program, albeit that ridership's growing faster, we can put service out. But we've also got to make sure, particularly our bus network, that we're providing reliable service. I'll mention a couple of things. About this time last year, we implemented open payments on our smart card system. It was enabled by the original system that TransLink implemented. A lot of fanfare. It's a bit of a niche, but if you don't have a Compass card, you can just tap right with your chip-enabled credit card, or if you have an NFC wallet on your phone. It's an example of trying to broaden the appeal and the accessibility of the system. We were able to have some fun in an advertising campaign that started out with Morgan Freeman the day before stuff happened in his world, and then it ended up we got on a silver platter a homegrown movie star in Seth Rogen, who ended up being a bit of the voice of our campaign. So we're having some fun in the system. And I just want to emphasize that as we're thinking about, as we brand our systems, and as we think about our marketing campaign and the tools that we put in place, we want to have a little fun. In the fall, we were the first, I think, in North America to have wearables for our chip-enabled smart card system. You get a little compass wristbands. We had fun with that. People were lined up at our sales outlets in the morning to buy them. They sold out in a few hours. Last year, we put together our first ever customer experience action plan, which we made publicly available just last week at our annual general meeting. 64 initiatives that we expect to implement by 2025 when our new Broadway subway, our subway project, opens. Lastly, as part of our TransLink Tomorrow program, we have an open innovation call program. This year's open innovation topic, for which we've received about 50 applications, is improving the customer experience at our stations and facilities. So we're trying to find innovators out there in the private sector world, in academia, in other governments to give us ideas, and we can help invest in some of their ideas.
Okay, appreciate that. Now, each of you in your presentations, I think, focused on some of the challenges that you faced individually, but I think there was a common thread that more lies ahead in terms of the design, build, maintenance, and financing of new capital projects in your region. So a jump ball question here is, would any of you like to talk about some of the challenges your system's facing with respect to maintaining or finding financing for big capital in rail?
I'll jump right in. You know, there's a number of constraints or a number of issues that are really difficult right now when it comes to addressing major capital. Aside from funding, as I identified, you know, whether it's the market constraints in construction or supply side limitations from vendors, they add up. One of the things that has become very concerning for me as of late is trying to compete with the private industry on getting good qualified staffing. There's so much opportunity out there, and the competition is very tough. We're in the process right now of that 30-year cycle for a transit organization, and I say that from the standpoint of it opened and expanded in 1954, 33 years, people retired, 1987, 1990. So here we are now. Last year we lost 1,000 employees to retirement, and we're on track this year to lose just as many. But from the capital expansion side, one of the things that is very difficult to explain to those in this city is I closed down this subway 40+ weekends a year to do major capital work, replacing 65-year-old signal systems, for instance, and trying to explain the need to close down a public transit system, bus it on weekends, all right, for the betterment of the whole city. Sometimes that is a hard pill to swallow. And it also has a negative impact on me on ridership and revenue. So this year, our projections right now is we're going to be down about $20 million in revenue. So as you're trying to do your budget for this year and next year with the city, and you're talking about the advancement and the need for public transit funding, and yet we're shutting down, you know, there's some mixed messages there that become difficult for people to understand.
Maybe I'll draw out a little bit of a different tack on this one. Is these large capital projects, we're currently embarked on a $5 billion extension or creation of the Green Line, and just the role uncertainty plays, especially in a long life capital project. So while we've seen ridership dip with the economy, we see then questions are different about the capital project as we haven't reached procurement yet. So the uncertainty of the current economic conditions, but then also political uncertainty as these projects can take 5-7 years to develop and fully get to procurement. They're in a sensitive point during that development phase. And how do you chart the course as that uncertainty starts to come at you? How do you get the right project at the end and not just barrel forward, but also how do you not get distracted by short-term changes? So a lot of it is project leadership and vision, having the right alignment with your stakeholders, with the public, that customer experience. As long as you're leveraged from there, we found that anchors everything that we're trying to do and is a bit of a defense mechanism around those distractions on projects. So just that uncertainty in how it can drive the course of the project, especially when you have funders from other levels of government and their perception of where the project is at, and you're incumbent upon making sure the original vision is still there, and how do you chart the course?
For us, the capacity, it's a double-edged sword, but that is probably the number one risk issue for our organization over the next number of years. With this $9 billion program going forward, we're going to have 2 SkyTrain extensions, automated SkyTrain extensions at the same time. That's never happened before. We've got our largest ever fleet order coming out, in fact, this summer, to both retire our original equipment that's now 33 years old and also to expand our service with 5-car trains instead of 4-car trains. And at the same time, we need to build a new train operating base, a new control center, and all the systems that will allow us to modernize going forward. So managing regular maintenance, state of good repair, capital type projects with expansion projects in the context of also the challenges of hiring and retaining excellent staff is a really big challenge going forward. We have our work cut out for us over the next 6 or 7 years, and that capacity word will probably be coming all the time. From a funding standpoint, in this morning's session, we were talking about land value capture. Even as we conventionally want grants from the federal government, want our grants from the province, and raise revenue locally, we need to be looking at alternative revenue sources, and the extent to which P3 type of financing can help support more conventional transit projects, I think remains a bit of a topic of challenge here in Canada, at least for certain types of projects. I'll just want to comment on one other thing that Rick sort of reminded me of, because we'll be talking about this at a board meeting on Thursday, is that overnight. Because we operate from about 5 a.m. until 1:15 a.m., so we get, 4 hours or less of work on the right-of-way overnight. The good people of downtown Vancouver and the entertainment district would love us to be operating 24/7 of the system. That's a big challenge because we've got to maintain the right-of-way overnight. We do not have redundant tracks. So those pressures are going to continue to be on the system, much in the same way Rick mentioned.
Okay, thanks very much. We've got time, I think, for just one last question. And I think it reminds me of what we heard earlier in the conference from our opening speaker, from Governor Granholm, talking about the way that mobility is changing and changing towards a service. And we know APTA also undertook a study mission in the lead up to UITP, studying the same thing. So there's a focus en masse and integrating multiple modes of transportation. So what unique experiences can local agencies like yours give to the audience here today in terms of integrating the modes? We'll start with Kevin and come this way.
So we're off to, and in Vancouver, I think we're in a very unusual place. On the one hand, there was a study done by one of our local financial institutions, Van City, a couple of years ago, that suggested that Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, not the region, the city of Vancouver was the ride-sharing capital of the world on a per capita basis. We have two different homegrown car share companies, other car shares, bike shares. Biking and pedestrian is of course, a big thing in Vancouver. We do not have ride-hailing. Uber, Lyft, they're not there yet. I think we're the only major metropolitan region in North America that does not yet have ride-hailing. The province is probably going to finally issue their regulations in the fall. But we know that we've got to engage with all of these different providers, TNCs, car sharing, and so forth. It is certainly the wave of the future. In fact, our first open innovation call last year, the one award that we made was working with our local car share company and our local bike share company to actually create our first sort of version of a kind of mobility as a service common app. We know it's coming. I was at the Stockholm UITP summit a couple of weeks ago. It was everybody's talking about MAAS, and that's something that we need to be part of. The question that we have that we've been debating within TransLink, should we be the provider? Should we actually try to create the app ourselves? Do we just wait for it to happen? Or how do we sort of in the middle ground engage in that and ensure that the type of platform that is ultimately created and the applications that flow from that have the right public policy outcomes and objectives where everybody can play in that space, where you can plan, book, pay for your trip all at once, but also avoid some of the negative outcomes that might come with ride-hailing run amok, if I can just say that.
Doug?
Maybe just to follow on that, we've tried to anchor our perspective just in what can we do as a transit agency to free people from being car captive. So what role can we play? We're somewhat passive, and we're looking for partners in the private sector and creating fertile soil for them to be successful. So whether it's bike share, whether it's Car2Go, Uber, Lyft, they're all actors in our market. How do we play and be open to that, knowing that we're trying to leverage people to give up their car, and then we feel once that has happened, we can compete. And if they're still anchored with the car, that's where our challenge will be. So try to take that. We're somewhat passive at this point. We're not trying to aggressively move into the app market, but how do we not be a barrier to that coming to our jurisdiction? Because those might be better solutions than we can offer, especially in first mile, last mile, and just be a partner, a way to have that blossom to then be able to compete with the mode that is so ingrained in our culture.
Okay, Rick?
Right, and following the lead of both, we're in the process right now of establishing a 5-year service plan, right? And it's to really take a holistic look at what we're going to do throughout the city, working in partnership with the City of Toronto. But one of the parts that we have to start really addressing, and I mentioned it earlier about they're asking about us buying more buses and putting more buses on the streets, is we can no longer continue to put buses on the streets to contribute to the congestion that's there. So we're going to be looking at whether it's bus rapid transit, elements of trying something different. We just partnered with the city as well on an autonomous vehicle that we'll be piloting next year to an area of the city that has a little less transit than others. So we're very open-minded in looking at all this as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to close this session of the panel, and I invite you to join me in thanking our panelists, Rick, Doug, and Kevin, for being here today. It was a real pleasure to speak to you about the opportunities and challenges in Canada's passenger rail network, and thank you all for your attention. Enjoy the rest of your program. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. It was a great session. A lot of good information. Let's keep up the dialogue. And what was that phrase, Kevin, that you used? Ride-hailing gone amok? Something like that? I might need that one. Okay. But thank you all. Thanks for participating. Thanks for being here. Reminder, the next concurrent session begins at 2:30, so you got a few minutes to kind of stretch a little bit. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.